The Al-Assad family had ruled Syria since 1971. December 2024 will forever be etched in the history of Syria. After nearly 14 years of brutal rule, Bashar al-Assad's regime has come to an abrupt end. For years, the world watched as Assad clung to power amidst an ongoing civil war. Supported by powerful allies like Russia and Iran, he appeared untouchable. But on December 7, 2024, everything changed. Rebel forces, led by the militant group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, seized Syria's largest cities, including Aleppo and Homs. Within days, they made their move toward Damascus, Syria's capital. The once stronghold of Assad's rule had now become a symbol of collapse. The fall of Assad didn't just signal the end of a brutal dictatorship, it marked the beginning of a new, uncertain era for Syria. For years, Assad's hold on power was sustained by military might, foreign support, and strategic control of key cities. But as rebel forces advanced and Damascus fell, the balance of power shifted dramatically. What led to this sudden collapse? What does Syria look like now, and how will the world react to this change? These questions are at the heart of Syria's unfolding crisis. Syria's path toward the fall of Assad wasn't sudden. Over the past few years, his grip on the country had weakened. Following his violent crackdown on peaceful protests in 2011, Syria descended into civil war. The conflict escalated, drawing in international powers. Russia provided crucial military support, while Iran deployed forces to bolster Assad's army. Yet despite their help, Assad was constantly battling internal divisions, economic decline, and increasing discontent among the population. The turning point came as Syria's economy spiraled into crisis. Sanctions imposed by the West, coupled with the ongoing war, crippled Syria's infrastructure. Despite the efforts of Assad's forces to maintain control, the country's cities were torn apart, and millions of civilians fled as refugees, further destabilizing the region. The once powerful military that Assad relied on began to crumble under pressure. By 2024, the situation became even more dire. Key cities like Homs and Aleppo, which had long been under Assad's control, fell into rebel hands. These cities were vital to Assad's strategic operations, and losing them was a blow he could not recover from. As rebel groups, particularly HTS, gained ground, internal divisions within Assad's military forces grew. Some units, worn down by years of conflict, began to defect. Others simply retreated as rebel forces advanced. At the same time, Assad's international supporters, including Russia, began to distance themselves as their own priorities shifted with changing global dynamics. Assad's reign had been propped up by foreign aid and military intervention, but with fewer resources and less international backing, his position was no longer sustainable. By December 7, 2024, the rebels, now more organized and better equipped than ever, launched their final offensive on Damascus. This was the critical moment when Assad's power came to an end. As HTS forces stormed the capital, the Syrian government crumbled. Reports indicated widespread looting, violence, and political chaos as Assad's loyalists fled. The rebels seized key government buildings and military installations, signaling the collapse of the regime. The Syrian capital, once a symbol of Assad's power, now stood at the center of the revolution. The fall of Damascus was a moment of historical significance, but it also left Syria in a state of political and military disarray. Assad had long been the face of the Syrian government, and with his downfall, the country faced the daunting question: what comes next? Without a clear leadership structure or unified opposition, Syria now finds itself at a crossroads. While the international community calls for a peaceful political transition, the situation on the ground remains volatile. Rebel groups have fractured, with no single entity capable of assuming control over the entire country. Even as HTS and other factions claim victory, they face internal divisions that make any sustainable governance impossible. As the dust settles, Syria is left to rebuild, but the challenges ahead are immense. The loss of a stable government means the country will likely remain fractured for the foreseeable future. Foreign powers like Russia and Iran have interests in Syria's future, but their ability to influence the outcome is uncertain, especially with the shifting global balance. The United States, Europe, and regional powers like Turkey are all watching closely, but their positions remain unclear. The overthrow of Bashar al-Assad marks a new chapter for Syria, but it's a chapter full of uncertainty. With the regime in ruins, Syria faces an uncertain future. one that's shaped by fractured rebel groups, ongoing foreign interventions, and a population desperate for stability. As the world waits to see how Syria's story unfolds, the coming months will likely reveal whether the country can rebuild or whether it will spiral into further chaos. Now, more than ever, Syria is in need of a political solution that can bring peace and rebuild what has been lost. Whether that happens depends on the unity of Syria's factions and the international community's ability to provide support. For now, the only certainty is that Assad's fall has left Syria in a state of limbo, its future undecided, and its people uncertain about what lies ahead.